Robert Wagner is the definition of elegance, charm, and versatility. Is it any wonder why audiences were mesmerized by his performance throughout his entire movie career? It didn't matter whether his roles were dramatic or romantic. His range never failed to impress or inspire, and with those boyish good looks, he was destined for the silver screen. That's why it's time to remember the legacy of one of cinema's best stars as we count down the top 10 Robert Wagner movies of all time. Number 10. White Feather.
I'm here to speak for myself. I will fight Little Dog if that's what he wishes, with a rifle or with a lance, but I will talk first.
This is the time for dying.
Early on in his career, Robert Wagner was still trying to establish himself as a headlining star in Hollywood, and that's why his performance in 1955's White Feather is so important then, as it allows him one of his first opportunities to truly shine as a leading man. What's the story to this one? Well, it's that in 1877 Wyoming, an American land surveyor, played by Wagner, falls in love with a Native American girl during peace negotiations between the USA and the Cheyenne tribe, and this draws the fury of the girl's fiancé. Yes, part romance, part Western, this one has something for all audiences to enjoy. But as it happened, aside from being hugely entertaining, White Feather was also history-making in its own small way too, as it was the first American movie to ever be filmed in Durango, Mexico. And the only reason it was filmed there at all was because art director Jack Martin Smith liked the sound stages found in the city.
It'll be all right. The Cheyenne is a warrior. He's too proud to attack us with our backs to him.
Number 9. The War Lover.
Put down that dog. You couldn't wait until he was buried, could you, to get your hands on what you wanted?
Max doesn't want him. Somebody's got to take care of the mutt.
Not you. Put him down.
1962's The War Lover sees an on-screen clash take place between two heavyweights of Hollywood's golden age, and that's because it pits Robert Wagner's character of wartime military pilot Bo Boland against Steve McQueen's similarly positioned Buzz Rickson. Does this make for a lot of great scenes between the two as they often threaten to come to blows? Yes, and it also helps to elevate this tale of a brash young captain placed in command of a Boeing B-17 bomber to heights it would never have otherwise been able to achieve. In fact, so good is the chemistry between the pair here, they steal every scene they're in together. But it almost wasn't McQueen who got the role of Captain Buzz Rickson here. No, Warren Beatty was originally offered it, but he turned it down after realizing who his co-star would be. This, of course, was the period where the two were not on speaking terms after Beatty had caused the divorce between Wagner and Natalie Wood.
Hey! Daphne! Daphne, I don't know where you live!
Number 8. Between Heaven and Hell.
Hey, this is real stuff. Just give me this chick's number, boy, and when I get steak, give me that picture. Sure.
Another war film, 1956's Between Heaven and Hell, sees Robert Wagner take on the role of Private Sam Gifford, the spoiled son of a wealthy Southerner who finds himself being drafted into the military during World War II. And while initially he remains brash and above it all when comparing himself to everyone else around him, eventually his experiences fighting in the Pacific cause him to reassess his views. Yes, here we get to see Wagner go from unlikable character to outright hero over the course of the movie's 94-minute runtime. And that makes it impossible not to relate to him as we're seeing things through his eyes every step of the journey. But that's not the thing people talk about this film for today. No, it's perhaps best known for being at least partially adapted for screen by star of The Twilight Zone, Rod Serling. That said, he would not receive credit for his work here as his initial 9-hour script was ultimately rejected for being too long. Number 7. A Kiss Before Dying.
Mother, don't worry, they'll love you, you'll see. Well, else, why did you wear a thing like that? I told you the kind of people that would be here. Well, it's too late now.
One of Robert Wagner's most celebrated early roles, 1956's A Kiss Before Dying, sees him take a villainous turn as Bud Corliss, an ambitious college student so desperate to marry a rich heiress that he resorts to murder in order to achieve his goal. Obviously then, this was a side to the Detroit native which audiences had rarely gotten a chance to see before, and it made him all the more compelling to watch as a result. Do his murderous plans succeed? You'll have to watch it to find out, and that's not the only reason to watch, as the supporting cast made up of Jeffrey Hunter, Virginia Leith, and Joanne Woodward are also stellar in this one. But it wasn't quite the same story as the source novel of the same name written by Ira Levin, and that's because, due to the Hays Code being in effect, the producers were unable to get a scene where abortion is discussed included in the final cut.
Okay, anything you say.
You all right?
Number 6. The Mountain.
You're always reminding me about how I was born and Mama died. And before she died, she said his name is Christopher. Take care of him.
That's how it was.
Then take care of me.
1956's The Mountain sees Robert Wagner take on his toughest challenge yet, Mother Nature herself. Yes, alongside his co-star, Spencer Tracy, Wagner spends the majority of this flick trying to conquer the Earth by climbing the French Alps after a plane crashes there. Not that he has altruistic motives though, no, he simply wants to loot the bodies of the dead. And that's why his character, Chris Teller, brings his brother Zachary along, because his on-screen sibling, as played by Tracy, is an experienced mountain climber. Obviously, as things go on though, their plan gets more complicated, particularly when they come upon a survivor of the crash. But the two leads were more than capable of handling anything that was thrown their characters' ways here, as they were already comfortable working together after having done so in another film. Of course, in that one, they wouldn't portray brothers. No, instead, they'd portray father and son.
In the plane back there. Something moved. There's something in there.
Wind.
No, I saw it. There's something back there. Something moved.
At number 5, we have Broken Lance.
Go ahead. Pull it. Draw and I'll blow your head off.
Broken Lance might not be the most famous movie Robert Wagner ever appeared in, but it's certainly one of his best ones, and that's because it tells the tale of the Devereaux, a family of ranchers, and the interactions they all have with one another while living in 1800s Arizona. Who does Wagner play here? Well, that would be the youngest son of the family, Joe Devereaux, a part Native American man who seemingly has no interest in taking over his father's ranch empire. And his father would be portrayed by another big star as it happened, because that role was taken up by none other than his future The Mountain co-star, Spencer Tracy. That said, neither of these actors would get the most buzz coming out of this one, as the accolades would all be saved for Kathy Girardo. So good was her performance as Joe's mother, Senora Devereaux, in fact, she'd be nominated for an Academy Award. Number 4. Titanic.
I've never heard it
Never
before.
heard it before. Where have you been? Locked up in some art gallery? Why, that's the hottest jig the kids do.
James Cameron may have broken every box office record under the sun when his 1997 take on the sinking of the legendary ship became the highest grossing movie of all time, but he wasn't the first person to tackle the story of the Titanic on screen. And that's because back in 1953, Jean Negulesco was making his own version, and that version featured a star turn from Robert Wagner. Sure, Wagner wouldn't technically be the lead here, but he would play the crucial role of Giff Rogers, a tennis player who finds himself caught on the doomed ship. And when things go wrong, and an iceberg strikes then, he does everything he can to survive. Not that he had a difficult job acting this one though, as the filmmakers strove to make the whole thing as authentic as possible. So authentic did they go in fact, the only music featured on screen comes from the band playing on board.
I don't think it's so serious. We'll get help.
I think so too.
I'll bet there are practically 7 or 8 ships coming right now.
Number 3. The Pink Panther.
Inspector Clouseau, this is the prefect of police. I have information regarding the Phantom.
The Phantom?
Yeah.
One of the most legendary comedy movies of all time, 1963's The Pink Panther, remains a masterclass of laughs to this day. And that's because it expertly tells the story of a notorious jewel thief's attempts to steal a priceless diamond, all while a bumbling inspector tries to catch him. And while Robert Wagner doesn't portray either of these roles here, he still has a major part to play as George Lytton, the nephew of David Niven's villainous jewel thief. Though for as good as he is, pretty much everyone agrees the show is well and truly stolen by Peter Sellers' iconic turn as Inspector Jacques Clouseau. But Sellers wasn't initially supposed to be the breakout star here. No, the whole thing was supposed to be a vehicle for Niven, and because he was so outshone in the end, he would all but disown the film in the years which followed.
Oh, I never make any plans. I just sort of follow my instincts, you know?
George.
Number 2. Dragon, the Bruce Lee story.
Okay, so he wanders the land searching for his brother.
And he has something no one else has ever seen.
Kung Fu!
Starring Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee is one of the greatest legends in Hollywood history, so it's no surprise that not long after his tragic death in 1973, his life story was told in a book written by his widow, Linda Lee Cadwell, and that book would eventually be adapted into 1993's Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, starring Jason Scott Lee as the titular martial arts master. As for Robert Wagner's role in the proceedings, he plays Bill Krieger, the manager of Lee. Obviously then, for the film to work, the chemistry between the pair must be strong, and luckily it is, as every scene featuring the two of them is a must-watch. But Bruce Lee wouldn't be the only member of the Lee family this one was made in honor of in the end, as only months before it was released, Bruce's son Brandon would also tragically die before his time, and this death would actually happen on the set of The Crow after he was accidentally shot in the gut with a live round. Our number one pick is Stars and Stripes Forever.
Well, I guess you'd say it's a kind of tuba, sir. Only it goes more like this. Boom, 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 boom.
While Robert Wagner has been featured in a number of classic movies over the years, for our money, none of them are better than 1952's Stars and Stripes Forever. And that's because in this biography of American composer and bandleader John Philip Sousa, we get to see the life of a legendary musician play out. And with Clifton Webb carrying the film's heavy weight on his shoulders by playing Sousa, it leaves Wagner free to go wild as Private Willie Little, another young musician who's given the chance to join the famed composer's band after he invents a new instrument named the sousaphone. Not that everyone was happy with this one though. No, as a result of artistic license being used at various points in the story, many musicians who had played under Sousa walked out of the world premiere, and the reason they did so was because they felt it was too historically inaccurate.
That lets the sound come out evenly over the whole band.
What on earth?
What the devil's going on out here?
And there we have it, the top 10 Robert Wagner movies of all time. No doubt you have your own list, so be sure to let us know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and get alerted of our next video. We'll hope to see you soon!